Hello, my name is Hubert Bennett. I'm with the Georgia Department of Education Technology Services Department. I am doing a demonstration for you now in the Perkins V local application. There were a number of sessions about the Perkins done all over the state, but this one I'm trying to do a recording so that you are able to view this for the first time or actually view it again to help you in navigating through the application now that it is available inside of SLDS. One of the first things I want to point out to you is that you must be set up correctly by your district data person. If you are the Perkins CTAE director, then you probably want to have a different setting than what you see here on this screen. Currently, I am logged in as a district user, whereas as the user, I can work inside of the Perkins. I can type in information, I can write narratives, I can select things, but generally, you're going to want to make sure when you log in that you are a district administrator. I am still logged in here as a district user as the screen comes up. Now I am logged in as a district administrator, and you can see I'm going to switch between the two applications because they look almost identical with the exception of the green buttons here in the bottom. You will notice as the user I only have 3 buttons: working copy, or view working copy, print working copy, and the pending sections, whereas as the district administrator I have picked up 2 new buttons, and one of them is the lock CLNA and the submit to superintendent button. Once I lock the CLNA, this button will turn into an unlock CLNA button, so it's just kind of a toggle switch. You will have these 2 additional buttons. Once you're completed it and it's ready to go, you would submit it to the superintendent. Give me 1 second and let me open up a screen of the superintendent, and you will see that it actually has, now I'm logged in as a superintendent, and you'll see 2 new buttons, and these are light green. The reason they are light green is because the application has not been submitted to the superintendent yet. But once it's submitted to the superintendent by the CTAE director, then this will turn green and the superintendent will have the opportunity to reject the working copy. That will send it back to the CTAE director to make any changes. Once changes are made in that rejected copy, the CTAE director would then need to relock it, resubmit it to the superintendent. Once the superintendent is happy with it, they can approve and submit the application to the state. If you will also notice here in the bottom of the screen, even when I go to the administrator side, you will see a history log, and it will show you the status and when's the last time it was updated, when it was signed off by the superintendent, and if and when the state signs off on the particular CLNA and the local application. Now, before we get into the actual local application itself, let me take you down this road here because this is the data download. Now, I'm going to switch back to the administrator part, but it all works the same way. But the data download, now it'll open up a screen that comes to several reports that can be downloaded, and these are for the CTAE indicators. Now let me point your attention to this area here, the state determined performance levels. When you click on it, it will open up a PDF file, and it will share with you the indicators, the state indicators for the various upcoming years and for the particular secondary indicators. But that comes from this link. It is my understanding that districts will no longer have district specific targets, but they will actually have one performance level, and that will be state determined. Now let's take a look at one of these downloads. When I click on the download button, depending on your browser, it will do it will download the file. In this case, it's an Excel file, but based on the browser, it may come in. It may show up here. It may actually just give you a little message up in the browser window saying that it's been downloaded, and you would need to go to the download folder to see it. But I am using Chrome, so it just kind of, in my setting, is set to where it just throws it down here in the status bar. I can click on the Excel file, and it will actually open up. And this is my district's personal data. Not personal, but my district's data. And please notice, because of my settings, before I can do anything inside of this Excel file, I would need to enable editing so that I could come in here and make any kind of edits or changes or anything that I wish, if you wish to do that. Now, this is that indicator file for 1S1. This is 4-year cohort thing, and it actually breaks it down into various subgroups and information. Now, from what I understand, this is the number, the overall number that you are looking at, but in the various sessions around the state, it has actually been brought to the attention that sometimes the district may be fine overall, but there may be some kind of subgroup, some ethnicity or some other subgroup, ED or male-female. There may be some subgroup that might fall below the performance indicators, and if so, that might be one of the areas that you may wish to address inside of your overarching needs. But now that I have downloaded this report into Excel, I can make changes. I can delete information. I can rearrange it. I can do whichever I like to. I can save it locally to where it's a local copy. Any changes, any edits, any things that you do to your local copy will not, I'm going to not save this, it will not affect the original source of the data. So these reports here inside of the data download folder will never be changed based on any changes that you make locally. I hope that kind of explains that. Feel free to roll this back, to rewind this and hear that again. Now we're going to jump inside of the local application itself. Okay. Now we are inside of the application, and you will notice, let me minimize this, there are 3 parts, A, B, and C, to the local application, to the CLNA and the local application. The first part is where you will put in your team members. This is the identification of the team, and then the identification in 1.2 is the identification of the stakeholders. Okay? Now, in each of these, you will have boxes that you will enter in information, and if you will notice that each of these have an asterisk, the red asterisk, and that means that information is required before you can save and continue. So in other words, when you first open up your Perkins application, these boxes will be blank. So in order to enter any piece of information, you will have to enter, before you can enter any piece of information and save it, you would need to enter all the information on this screen and hit save and continue to go to the next screen. Now, during the sessions, it did come up, wouldn't want any of you to feel like you had to do a survey. However, it was brought up that if you choose to do a survey, you would not need to list all of the survey respondents. And in fact, in this example, they did 103 parents completed the survey. You would not need to list all 103 parents' names. A notation like this would be sufficient. And if you will notice, they actually did put a note in here. The information is inside the Perkins notebook in the CTAE director's office. This would be a great place for you to say where that data is being stored at, so that if and when you are monitored or audited in the future, you would be able to come here and and the notes would tell you where you could find the actual results. In addition, if you have more than one entry that goes in on a box, you would separate that by a comma or a colon or a semicolon or something like that. In other words, like here, the TAP person is Dr. Betsy Nevada, but the PACTE person is Dr. Calvin New Hampshire. So it's just separated by a comma. Okay? That works the same in the team and in the stakeholders. Now, once you finish entering the data for this page, and FYI, you may not have something in all, you may not have a real name in all of these boxes. NA is possible and is acceptable in some of these areas, but you must have something in every box to be able to save and continue. I'm going to just use this one as an example here so you see that there is NAs listed here, but if I take out something, if I leave one of these boxes blank, as you see it says please enter value for a name. So I have to enter something before I can actually click the finish button. Now please know, finish does not mean finish. Finish is, and inside of this application is more like just saying that that is another word for save. However, when you do click the finish button, it does tell the system that you have completed that piece of the section, that piece of the application, and it improves the percentage of completion. However, you can always go back and edit anything inside of the Perkins application until you submit it to the state. So edits can happen, corrections, changes can happen until you submit it to the state. Okay? But that is the part A, the consultation part. That's identification of the team and identification of the stakeholders. Then we get into the B part. So I'm going to close A, I'm going to come to B part, and I am going to look at the data collection and analysis. The first part here, 1.1, these are the core indicators of performance. Actually, those download pieces of information will come in very handy for here. So you will see that they have gone in, someone at the CTAE office went in and just entered some data. As you can see that they just entered it here for each of the performance indicators. Just to let you know, you can click here to go back to the performance indicators, or actually we have put the performance indicators also on this chart here. So if I click on there, it'll go to the data download portion of it. It opened up in another window, so I can just switch back and forth. At the beginning part of the data collection and analysis, you will see that the first thing you will have to do is to rate or to evaluate yourself based on exemplary, operational, emerging, or not evident. You should evaluate yourself and rank yourself based on the team feedback and the stakeholder feedback, and then you will actually answer these questions that pertain to each of the particular areas. This question here is, what does the data say about student achievement, subgroup, special populations? Now, this information can be typed directly into the narrative box here, or many people actually will do copy and paste. But let me warn you, please be careful in your copying and pasting. We would prefer you should never try to copy a picture, or you shouldn't copy over a chart, because it just makes the things awkward and unwieldy once you go to print this the application. Now, many people have said in the past that they would sit there and make this, write their stuff up on a Word document or something like that, and then like to copy and paste it over. Let me caution you there. You can do that, but anytime you copy information from some other source, it will usually have formatting hidden inside of the copy feature. So if you went over to Word and you copied something and tried to paste it back into this section, it would actually bring over with it the formatting info that's embedded inside of the Word document, which will cause issues. If you do copy and paste from some outside source, we recommend that you use this paste feature that has the drop down, so that you come in here. If you're pasting straight from Word, this part of it will actually strip out any formatting. If you paste from Word, stripping out the font, paste from plain text, paste as HTML, paste HTML. So this will paste it as it's HTML, which probably is not what you want to do. This will paste from HTML, so it will strip out any of the HTML codes. Now, please understand, and I'm sure this will come up because it has come up many times in the clip. There have been people that copy and paste something, put it in here, and it looks absolutely fine until they go to print it. And then when they try to print it, that's when that formatting becomes a really major problem, and the printed version doesn't look like the online version that you see here. So if you do copy and paste, I strongly recommend you to print it to see what it's going to look like. And this is a good time for me to point out, here is a print button. This print button is only for this particular section. Over on the home button, there is a print working copy green button that will print the entire CLNA and the local application. However, this print button only does this section. So please, if you copy and paste, definitely print it into PDF and see what the final copy is going to look like. Again, let's go back to this 1.1. You enter your evaluation. Both of these questions are required, so you will have to have something in each of these boxes before you can hit the finish button. Once you finish, you will get a message like this that you can go back and review what you just completed or go to the next section. If you click on go to the next section, it's the same thing as if you click here. We're not going to go into detail about this because these are your elements that you have to address in your plan or in your application. So we're not going to check on every one of them because navigational wise they all work the same way. You have to evaluate yourself, then you have to put something in each of these boxes before you can click finish and move on to the next item. During the sessions that we had around the state, many of the directors were saying that the first thing they probably would do is to print a whole copy of the application, so that they can have a visual printed copy of what the application looks like. So if they need to share that with others to get input, they could actually have something that they could write, take notes on, and then come back into the application itself and make any notations or comments there. But after you complete the these 1.1 through 1.6, these various elements, then you actually get over into analyzing data. So section B, number 2, we get into the root cause analysis, and B2.1 is the root cause. This is looking at overarching needs. If I click here, it will open up the first overarching need that someone at CTAE has created for this particular district. You notice here is where they entered the overarching need, and you see that it has an asterisk, so it is a required field. the CTAE folks entered in, there are very few special education students in CTSOs. So that is a required overarching need, and then there are several drop downs that you need to answer, and you'll notice all of these fields are required. So before I can save this, I have to answer every question. That doesn't mean I cannot come back and change it, but it does mean I have to enter something. So this first one is, how severe is this need? I have some drop downs here. I select whichever one. Is this need trending better or worse? I answer that. Can root cause be identified? If it can't be identified, then it probably is not a root cause. And then this is where you will rank these, 1 being the highest priority, 5 being the lowest priority of this group. The additional considerations in here, this is a narrative box. As you see, it is an asterisk, so something has to be in there. It still has the copy and paste things just like all the other narrative boxes, so I just kind of gobbledygook something in here. In addition, I created, please don't blame the CTAE folks for this one, I just did some typo stuff into an overarching need 2. I answered the questions, and if I needed to add another 3, 5, 10, 20, 100 overarching needs, I add them one at a time by clicking the add overarching need button here, and it would just throw a 3rd one, a 4th one, a 5th one, and so forth. When I click finish, that is finishing the overarching needs. Just like the other sections, I have an opportunity to review what I just did or continue to the next section, which is the root causes. We just completed the overarching needs, so now we're going to do the root causes for each of these overarching needs. So as you see here, the first overarching need comes over onto the screen, but you'll notice I cannot change that. I'm clicking on it, and that just kind of reduces the buttons here. It just brings number 2 up, so I can have a nice little clean display of just my overarching needs. Of course, it doesn't allow me to work on it while it's open, while it's closed like that. So one of the beauties of the application is, as I make changes to my overarching needs in this area, it automatically flows down into the root cause section. So if I needed to make a word edit change or something to my overarching need, I cannot do it from 2.2. I have to go back to 2.1 to make any edits or changes to the overarching needs. In 2.2, where I'm at now, I am working on the root causes. So here is the root cause that the CTAE folks entered. It's CTSO advisors feel they cannot meet the needs of the special ed students at out-of-town competitions along with supervising the other students. And the drop-down questions are, this is a root cause and not a contributing cause. Yes or no. Is this something we can affect? Yes or no. If you can't affect it, that's probably not something that's good to have as a root cause. And then the items, these elements that this particular root cause affects. Now you can check all of them or just the particular ones that it's addressing. And then in the additional consideration section, you'll notice it is also, again, has the asterisk, so it's mandatory. You have to put something in here. I can add another root cause for this overarching need 1. I can add as many root causes as I wish to here. Or I can go ahead and begin working on overarching need 2. I have something entered here because I have to enter something before I can hit the finish button. I have to do the drop downs. I have to have something here. Just to show you, if I take out this gobbledygook here and I try to do finish, it'll sit there and tell me please enter a value. So I'm going to just enter something there again, and I've hit the finish button, and it takes me to this message saying that I can review the root cause. The reason it doesn't say go to the next section is because I am finished. I have gotten to the end of the Part B. So there is no other section inside of Part B. Remind you again, here's a print button. There's Part B. I'm done with Part B. So I have looked at my data. I have set up my teams. I've set up my stakeholders. I've analyzed my data. I've come up with my overarching needs, and I have addressed the root causes for those particular overarching needs. Now I'm actually going to get into my application, to my local application itself. So this is where I'm actually going to say what we're going to do. So I have overarching needs, root causes, and here I'm actually, if you'll notice, my overarching needs have actually flowed down here into the overarching, to the C part of my application. If I had 10 overarching needs here, all 10 of them would be showing up down here. It is a direct relationship there. If I'm working in C and I come down to this section here and I notice that, and as I've clicked here on overarching need 1, it opens up inside of the C part. If I notice something, a typo in my overarching need or a typo in my root cause or something I'm needing to change that, I cannot make changes here in C. To change either the overarching need or the root cause, I must go back up to the original source, which is in B. This is where I would make the changes to the overarching needs. This is where I would make the changes or edits to the root causes. They would automatically then flow down into C. In this C.1.1, I am looking at overarching need 1, but I am entering my goal. Here I'm working on my goal. So the goal here is to increase the number of special ed students in CTSOs by 10% over the next 2 years. If you'll notice that is a pretty decent SMART goal because it is measurable. It does have a time. So I encourage you, I believe the CTAE folks encourage you to use a SMART goal rubric to come up with these goals. So I have identified my goal. I click next, and I'm going to go to this side of the screen. I'm going to go to the goal implementation. Now I could have clicked here as well instead of clicking the next, but so here's where I set up my goal, and then here is where I'm actually entering my action steps. So see, here's my goal that's listed here, but notice I can't change it here. If I see a typo or something in my goal, I would need to come back to the goal definition. On this screen, I'm working on my action steps. So the first action step that CTAE said was hire a CTI instructor. Now you'll notice now there are a number of additional boxes here. So this is where you would put your funding source. So lots of different funding sources here, even local funds. CTAE use this as an example to show you that you could enter in other and then local funds, which subgroups this particularly applies to. It can do all, 1 or 2, 4, 5, however many. And then this is the 5 systems that you must select which system this particular action step will fall under. Now, for those of you that might not be familiar with this, if you recall the wheel diagram that surrounds the whole child, the part of the ESSA plan, the 5 systems that surround the whole child, these are the 5 systems that go around the whole child. So you have to decide which one of these systems, or all of them, if it so applies, particularly about this action step. Okay? And then here's a couple of dialog boxes that you need to enter: method for monitoring implementation, method for monitoring effectiveness, position, role, responsible. So you see, you enter that information. And then 3 more drop downs: the evidence-based indicator. All of these action steps should be evidence-based, so you choose which one it is. The timeline for implementation, what kind of timeline you're going to use in the measurement, whether increase, improve, maintain, decrease. I can add an additional action step. I can have as many action steps as I want for each of my goals. And then once I'm finished, I can click finish. And again, finish does not mean finished. It just means save and go on. What I have just said, that is, I'm saving my information for overarching need 1, so I can go back and look at it or continue to the next section, which is the goal and action steps for my overarching need number 2. And again, if I had 10 overarching needs from up in section B, they would all be listed right here in this area. Now, I'm not going to go through this again, but you see, here's the information. This would be my goal. I've got to type something in there, hit next. It's going to come over to my action steps. So I'm going to type something in here. I'm not going to finish this, but I'm going to just show you, if I try to finish this, it will tell me I need to put values in all of these items. So you can see I would need to enter something in all of these required categories for me to finish, save, and continue to the next item. Again, just to recap, this is where I work on my overarching need. This is where I work on my root cause. That's both of those are in B. To actually get into my goals and my action steps, I work on those in section C. I'm going to move on to section C, part 2. This is the required questions. And you see there are 8 pages, 2.1, 2.2, all the way through here. I'm going to open up one of them, and you will see that for this particular one, there's 3 questions. There's A, B, and C. Again, these are narrative boxes. They are all 3 required. I can type directly in here, and I can do formatting. I can actually do some bolding if I wanted to. I can do some underlining. I can do some bullets if I wanted to. I can do pretty much whatever I'd like to do. I even have a spell checker here, so it's going to run through a spell checker, and I'm going to ignore, and I'm going to ignore, and I'm going to do that finish spell checking. So you have your editing tools, or again, you can bring it over. You can paste from Word, paste from these other items. I'm going to hit finish. Gives me that same message. I can review what I just did and continue to the next section, which is just that next area here of questions. Some of these required question pages might have 3 questions, might have 4, 5, 6. These are all of the required questions that are required by the federal government. So they all have to be answered to some level. Again, you have a print button for each section if you wish. And then the last piece of the application, last just because it's in the order here, it is not necessarily the last question you have to answer, but you would need to read all 26 of these items. Check this box here by marking this box. The LEA, eligible, has read, understood, and agrees to abide by the general assurances listed above. So when you click this and hit finish, you are saying that you have read and you agree with all of the above. Of course, that has to be done, or I believe no funds are available to you. So when you click finish here, you're just saving that. We have walked through every piece of this information. Hopefully when you're done and complete, and no one expects, guys, that you would start with step 1 and you would finish it all in just a linear fashion. You may come in here and edit a section of it today. You might come back in next week and do another section. You might be skipping around. That's completely understandable. The idea, though, is when you're finished, when you come back home, you will be this item here will show 100%. Now, again, I'm back here in the home section, so I'm 100%, and there is a green button here that I can click on the pending sections. It will do a little audit for me and tell me the sections that have not been completed. Now, of course, if you have gone in and just entered some fictitious information, TBA, NA, something like that in each of the boxes, then it kind of circumvents this area, because when you do the audit, the pending sections, it can only look to see if it's blank. It will not look to see if it's a valid response. So if you have gone into all of these sections so that you're able to save each page, and you have just typed something in that you would come back later to see, then the pending sections would assume that you have already done that section, even though you intended to go back and see it. What I suggest you to do, to print a working copy and then to actually look at it and maybe have someone else to look at it to make sure you have every section completed. When you have it completed, you would want to lock the CLNA. When you click on this, it will actually do an audit similar to the pending section, and it will tell you if you're missing something. So I can click on OK here. Now notice, if you will, a red message comes up here. The current working copy for CLNA is locked. So anyone else that may come into here would not be able to make any changes to the local application or to the CLNA. They would see that it has been locked. You must lock it before you can submit it to the superintendent. It is expected that the CTAE director would be the one that submitted to the superintendent. However, since I am logged in as a district superintendent, I have the ability to submit it to myself. Once it's submitted to myself or submitted to the superintendent, then these two boxes will become green, and the superintendent can reject it. That would make it back available to be edited or changed or whatever the case might be. If the superintendent does approve the Perkins part of it and he's ready to submit to the state, then the superintendent and only the superintendent would be able to submit it to the state. If the state happens to reject it, and more than likely I'm guessing they would here, especially in the early stages, it would come back, an email supposed to come back to the superintendent and to the CTAE director, but please, I would not rely completely on the email portion of this. I mean, it's a brand new application. If I was a CTAE director, and once I submitted it to superintendent, I would kind of keep an eye on that, and I would reach out to the superintendent. I would tell them it's ready for his review, or his or her review. I would stay on top of this to make sure the flow works properly. I mentioned this earlier, but you will notice once you start submitting this to the superintendent, you will start seeing the log history here in this portion of the area. Your application has become available. When you log into your SLDS, if you do not see the Perkins, the CTAE Perkins tab, when you open up your SLDS, you should have a CTAE Perkins 5 application here at the top. There was some misinformation in the early stages a month or so ago. It was thought that you guys should have the clip SIP button as well, but you only need the clip SIP if you are also working on the district's copy of the clip. As you see here, the Perkins will have a completely separate button that you use to get into the Perkins application. You do not have to have the clip. If you are going to be on the clip team, then yes, you would need to have both, and your district data person would be the one to set this up. If, when you log into your SLDS now, you do not have the Perkins, then you should reach out to your district data person, talk with them, and let them know who at your district should be set up with the Perkins application. Remember, there are 3 levels. There's the district user. If you, the CTAE director, has other people that will be going in and actually typing, working inside of the application, then your district data person should set them up as a district user. The CTAE director should be set up as the district administrator, and then the superintendent should be set up to have the district superintendent. There are those 3 levels, and that's important to know because a lot of the questions that may come up as you guys move closer to the May 15th deadline probably will be based on what your level is. This is a great time for me to reiterate to you. The state cannot see your local application. They cannot see your Perkins. So if you are typing something in and you see something that just doesn't look right or whatever, it does no good for you to send us an email and say, hey, in my B section, it will not let me save something here. It does not do any good for you to tell us about this because we cannot come in and see this. The only way we can see what's here is by you sending us a screenshot of what this is. When the clip 3 years ago was built and we carried it over into the Perkins, it was decided, since this is a work in progress, that the state will not have access to your work in progress application. The only time we will be able to see it is when the superintendent submits it to the state. And then we will actually not be able to come in and see exactly what it looks like on your screen. We will have our own view of it at the state level. So we will never be able to see exactly what you have on the screen without a screenshot. When you send us a screenshot, it is imperative that you also include this area here. Of course, that may mean that you have to send us 2 screenshots, one to show us this, and then if it was down here, you would need to take another screenshot of this area of the screen. Many of your questions will be based on what level you come in at. And you're working inside of your Perkins application. The last thing I would like for you to do is to be worried about who do you need to send a question to. Because some questions should go to CTAE folks, and some of the questions should come over to me because of the navigation. But please, instead of sitting there racking your brain trying to figure out who to send a question to, if you're not sure, please feel free to send it to me. Because even if it is a question that should go over to your CTAE person, I will forward the question to them and they will take care of it. The worst thing is for you to be sitting there wondering, who do you need to contact? So here's how to contact me. Here's my contact information. If you will go back to your SLDS, click on SLDS, and it should open up something like this. If you will then look over below your banner bar, below these blue buttons, and you see this help and training link. Click on this help and training link. It will open up the help and training page, which you can also get to just by Googling. But this page has tons of information. This is where we will store this webinar. If you're watching this off of a link in an email or something, just know that you can always come back to this webinar by clicking here, this SLDS webinars. It will take you to a page of lots of different webinars that we have posted. This webinar should be in this section here under administrators. Of course, I haven't gotten it there yet because I haven't finished the recording. Going back to the help and training page, you'll see all kind of information. Here's all the training that we offer. Here is As you scroll down a little bit, here is the training team, the SLDS training team. Here's my name, my email address, and this is my cell phone number. So anytime you need to get in touch with me, if you can't remember it, just go to the help and training link. This page here, scroll down a little bit. There I am. There's my email address and my cell phone number. Please, please do not ever hesitate to reach out to me. I hope you found this video helpful. Thank you very much.